Well, hello and welcome to a brand new trading month right here in Lagos, Nigeria. I guess it's goodbye, to August. Well, let's get to the top stories now that lead you to gains in September. We see Nigeria's second oldest commercial lender, Union Bank, says it's successfully completed its merger with Titan Trust Bank Limited. In a statement released, Union Bank says the development comes 3 years after it began the process of a share sale agreement in 2021, follows the final approval by the Central Bank of Nigeria under the terms of the merger. Union Bank has fully absorbed Titan Trust Bank's operations and assets. The combined institution will continue to operate under the Union Bank brand, while Titan Trust Bank ceases to exist as a separate entity. The merger between the 108-year-old lender and its 7-year-old counterpart is occurring at a time when Nigerian banks are scrambling for investments to boost their capital in a race to meet the CBN's minimum capital requirement deadline that's coming in March 2026. To other corporate matters now, the CAC has deepened its move there for October for a smooth rollout for the Corporate Affairs Commission, shifting the rollout of its revised service fees to October 1st, 2025. The Commission says the deferment will allow for the full stabilization of its upgraded company registration portal, which is expected to be ready by mid-September, as later this month. According to a weekend statement, the move reflects CAC's commitment to a seamless transition into the new service regime and its broader goal of building an intelligent, customer-centric registry that meets global standards. The Ministry of Finance Incorporated, that's MOFI, they've also signed a landmark memorandum of understanding with the Chartered Risk Management Institute of Nigeria to strengthen risk management capacity across federal government portfolio companies. The agreement, sealed at MOFI's headquarters in Abuja, underscores ongoing efforts to institutionalize risk culture in public sector enterprises with assets estimated at 18 trillion, a workforce of over 15,000 indirect employees and shareholders in more than 52 entities. MOFI is positioning itself to scale its portfolio to at least 100 trillion within the next decade. So, all right, we'll be joining the live broadcast now as the FCT, that's for the FCT Minister Media Parley. We're joining that on DSTV, but you can continue following the money on other platforms at this time. All right, let's get a check on what's playing out with oil prices now. We see they traded in a tight range today as worries about raising outputs and the impact of U.S. tariffs on demand. That offsets supply disruptions stemming from intensified Russia-Ukraine airstrikes. And we see kicking off the brand new month in the green, $67.57 a barrel, 0.13% up. That's what we have for Brent crude, WTI. That's at $64, regaining that $64 level to start this new trading month. That's up 0.20%. We'll definitely give you a feedback later on to see how the oil market is trading. That's on Business Incorporated later today. All right, to housing matters now. See the Minister of Housing, that's architect Ahmed Dangiwa, has disclosed that this time the federal government is working with private sector to create a residential area to accommodate individuals who will be operating businesses in a free trade area in Lagos. The minister who visited the area says this further emphasizes the need for building materials hubs across the country. Take a listen.
How to supervise for a sightseeing of a location where we are going to locate the building material manufacturing hubs in the country. You know, we are supposed to locate one hub in each of 6 geopolitical zones of the country. And the free trade zone that we are going with the MD that is here with me, he has provided us a location which is very viable location for that. The location has all the features that are required or needed for a hub, building material manufacturing hubs. The essence of building material manufacturing hub is basically to reduce the cost of building material that we have, to produce them locally, and ensure that we reduce the importation of building materials from foreign countries. So these are some of the things that the PPP sector of the ministry are pursuing. And with this, it's definitely going to increase the housing deficit we're having, and even reduce the housing costs that we're having in the country. So we commend the Lekki Lekki Free Trade Zone for having this initiative, for providing us this location, and our investors are ever ready to take it up.
All right, to other stories now. See, China says it's willing to negotiate and sign an economic partnership agreement with Nigeria to implement the zero tariff already announced and also ease export of Nigerian products to China. The Director of Commercial and Trade Affairs, the Chinese consulate in Lagos, Zhu Fan, who emphasized this in a meeting with journalists, says the conversation will be broadened at the 2025 Nigeria International Lighting Expo. Take a listen.
This meeting, led by Lisa Lin, the general manager of Zhongshan Company Limited, in collaboration with the Chinese consulate in Lagos, is built on President Bola Tinubu's visit to China about a year ago.
Everyone.
The Director of Commercial and Trade Affairs, Chinese Consulate in Lagos, Zhu Fan, says that his country has noticed the need in Nigeria's lighting industry, and China has decided to collaborate with players in the sector.
With Nigeria's continued economic growth, accelerating urbanization, and expanding infrastructure, demand for lighting products is rapidly increasing. At the same time, consumers' pursuit of a higher quality of life is constantly improving, and their requirement for lighting products are gradually shifting from basic functionality to high quality, energy saving, and environmentally friendly, intelligent, and personalized. Across West Africa, power infrastructure is experiencing rapid growth.
They have the buy-in of Lagos State.
We understand, however, that government alone cannot achieve this vision. Partnership with international manufacturers, technology providers, and investors are essential. That is why we view this exhibition as a bridge for collaboration, linking innovation with opportunity and vision with practical solutions. As Lagos continues its journey towards reliable, sustainable, and affordable energy for all, we welcome partners who are committed to innovation, efficiency, and impact. Together, we can ensure that our streets are safer, our economy more productive, and our communities brighter, both literally and figuratively.
Beyond Lagos State, similar meetings and conversations have been promised by the collaborating parties to further drive investment into power infrastructure across Nigeria.
All right, now to our first conversation. Yes, a brand new month and definitely coming with brand new costs. At this time, the Nigerian Immigration Service announced that effective today, passport application fees within Nigeria are set to significantly increase with a 32-page 5-year validity. That's been raised from 50,000 naira to 100,000 naira. Then the 64-page 10-year validity from 100,000 to 200,000 naira. This marks the second major hike within a year. The prior increase occurred in August 2024. That was from 35,000 to about 50,000 naira. And then for the 10-year, about 70K to 100,000 naira. The government justifies the rise as necessary for sustaining passport quality, speedy delivery, and curbing corruption via a centralized personalization system. Also, the new $80 prepaid customs duty on all U.S.-bound postal shipments from Nigeria, that's already raising questions right now about its broader economic impact. Well, let's unpack all of this now with Dr. Paul Alaje, Chief Economist, SPM Professionals, joining me from our Abuja studio. Great to have you on the show, sir, and a happy new month.
Yeah, thank you so very much for having me. Happy new month.
Yeah, so
Thank you so much.
I guess the new month is coming with, some price changes, for some major services. And, let's kick off with the passport fee hike. At a time when inflation is still biting, minimum wage, that's at 70,000 naira, and we have some states, increasing that. at this time. How do you assess the impact of doubling passport fees on average Nigerians and household budgets? Does this mean reduction in japa rate?
Okay, thank you once again. I've looked at the issue carefully, talking about the issue of the cost of international passport to Nigeria in Nigeria. Recall that we also have Nigeria in diaspora that may want to get this passport for themselves. For Nigeria in Nigeria before now, it used to be 50,000 for 5 years and it's 100,000 for 10 years. But for Nigeria in diaspora, it has remained $150 for having access to the same. The question is, why the change for those in Nigeria and it did not affect those abroad? Now, my careful study revealed that we are discussing international passports. So when we discuss international passports, and from my presentation on GDP, I've warned that nations should not use their local currency, except they're having local conversation and they are presenting to themselves, then they can use local currency. But when it comes to international comparison, which of course a country must be compared to the rest of the world, then it's important for us to look at what the international costing is or what international pricing is. The first thing is, these passports, what was it before? I think during when President Jonathan was in office, it was about $47 to one passport because we are talking international passports. As of that time, exchange rate was around 150 to 200. I think President Jonathan left when it was 199, but it was around 150 for most part of his administration. Now, when you look at what exchange rate was, around 2022, 2023, exchange rate was around 400. Today, exchange rate is about 1,600. That policy of devaluation will certainly have impact on what we will pay for international passport. Perhaps that's one of the major components, because if you look at it, what the exchange rate was and what is exchange rate is now, and we want to procure international passport from outside Nigeria, honestly and sincerely, the price will most likely be different. Now, the question is, what should the price be? If it was $45, $47 and is now, if you ask me, when I did the conversion of 100,000 naira, it gave me around $63, $64 to 100,000 naira. And I looked at it very carefully. How did government arrive at this figure, or why is government charging? One would expect that even if there should be an increase, the increase should be around maybe 80 or 85,000 naira. Why are they getting it up to this? So I tried to also study the cost component of what makes up a passport, an international passport. And some of the things that make up an international passport, sadly, Nigeria as a country, we don't produce any of them in Nigeria. And Mr. Ladi, to shock you, we also don't have it in the entire West Africa and in the entire Africa. Most of these passports that we use with our 1 billion population size, 1.2 billion, they are imported to Africa territory. So what you see is perhaps the impact of importation of all components of international passport. So the option will be either we subsidize to bring the price back to what it was. If we check what the rate was at about 75 or 89. But if you are not going to subsidize, the price of 100 or 106 is what the number is returning. So if you look at 106, my argument will now be, does this still mean that we are going to be having delays? I was in Frankfurt a number of years back with an Indian, and at the entry point, the border official, that's the immigration officer, allowed my subordinate, an Indian, to pass and delayed me as a Nigerian not to pass. And I saw the drama, so I was bold enough to ask one of them the question, why am I being delayed? We are traveling. Why is he allowed and I'm not allowed? Is it because he's not black and I'm black? He said, no. So one of them told me that my passport is not the same passport with ease. I said, obviously, he said it's not because of the country, but the production. Nigerian passport, most of the passport we have here, they are laminates. They are laminates, and from the word laminated. But what is globally accepted? What is so that you can, anywhere you find yourself. For mine, they said some features were not in the passport. But I got this passport from immigration in Abuja, in Nigeria. Why should some features? They said because of the kind of passport Nigeria uses. So if the Ministry of Interior, which they are saying they are going to do, is going to upgrade this passport into the globally accepted one, then I think it might be good instead of the delays and sees, because they don't know. Some of us, we have to prove yourself beyond reasonable doubt at the point of entry. So if that is what they want to do, then I will personally be in for it. But if the price is just a hike without bringing Nigeria to, helping Nigeria to have a solid passport that can compete with the rest, because that's our major travel document, if you ask me, then I can tell you that I may not be for it. But from the document, from the publication and what immigration have said, and Ministry of Interior have said, I think it will be a good one for me.
Right. Definitely, I'm going to be looking out for the new features at this point to justify, that price hike. But, there's also that side of, revenue generation. We know the government's trying to raise cash at this point. Do you think this is all about revenue generation or legitimate, cost pressures, in the passport system? How are you seeing that?
For me, international application mentioned that Nigeria has some revenue concerns. But when you look at it locally, you see that our revenue concern might not be as they presented it. Our revenue challenges lies before subsidy was removed. Number two, before Naira was devalued. So right now, I think, to my mind, I'm not speaking for what's it called now, Ministry of Interior. The subsidy they might be paying, I'm not sure whether they do or not, because the way it is, the cost and what is obtainable from today is a match. So maybe before now, there was some amount of subsidy that was going on that government is removing hands from. That may be the situation, which is what I am suspecting. But other than that, if it's just for revenue, because there is a body called ICAO, and ICAO is that body responsible for most of the time for KPI, which is where most of the data, the passport data, international passport data are warehoused, for most part of the world. So that organization has a fee. So before now, to my mind, maybe government, maybe not, have subsidized for Nigeria or not, I'm not sure. But the point here is that if we are looking at the costs as of today, the cost matches with the amounts that government tends to want to charge for the new international passport, which of course I think is obtainable from today. But if that is not the case, especially my emphasis is moving Nigeria from the laminates that we wear to carbonates, ones that are polycarbonates, such that all features, everything will be there. Some persons' chips are not properly read. You can't read the chips. In fact, if you are filling some form for some meetings abroad and you are asked to put the back of your passport on your phone, for most passports it works, for some passports it does not work. If this is what Nigeria is working on or we are bringing on board, then I think it will be a very good one for Nigeria so that we can compete with the rest of the world. And I've also checked what some part of the world are charging in terms of pricing. For most developed countries and some middle-income countries that, of course, have adopted this type of technology on their passports, their rates are above $60. We have some charging as high as $250. We have some charging as high as $100. We have some charging as high as $70. Some are also charging $63, $60 as Nigeria wants to start. But we also have some less developing countries that are charging even much lower than Nigeria. But there are some African countries, to me, that they are outlier, like South Sudan and Sudan. Their rates are even as much as $100, in some cases $200. From what I've found out that their rates are. So to my mind, I think it's important for us to note that if we are talking of improved quality of international passports, and that the delays in getting international passports will be eroded. I recall that I mentioned that this rate, for my findings, is just for Nigerians in Nigeria. Nigeria outside Nigeria have been $150. Why was that not increased to my mind? Maybe because that is already dollar denominated. But in Nigeria, because of exchange rate disparity from 450 to about 1,500 to 1,600, we might be having this kind of challenges. So that is clear. If we want to bring the price down, honestly, I am totally in support of bringing the price even lower than 50. But something must come first. Our exchange rate must improve. Recall that I've had several conversations with you on exchange rate, the impact of exchange rate devaluation on our local currency and the cost of many things, some of which is perhaps what you feel now. Apart from that, even some costs internationally has also increased. So I want to be fair and I want to be balanced in making this presentation so that I give comprehensive information that I have based on what is obtainable around the world today.
Right. I guess, at this point, consumers just have to absorb whatever is giving. I don't know how much the average consumer can keep taking, when it comes to most of these price hikes. But is there a risk, that by making passports more expensive officially, Nigerians may turn to, informal or, corrupt channels, undermining the government's anti-corruption objectives? Is there a risk there?
Well, I think you are very right there. If the costs keep going up, it will certainly have impact on Nigerians. My advice for Nigeria, especially people that I speak for most of the time, which is the poor Nigerians that wants to travel, especially within West Africa, I think they should sort for West African card instead of sorting for an international passport. Because when you are looking at travel within West Africa, it's better to just get a West African card, which is cheap, especially for Nigerians that are doing trade activity between, say, Kano and the Niger Republic, or within Nigeria and Gabon, Lagos and Benin Republic. It's better to just get a West African card instead of getting an international passport, which might be pricey for now, because people's business must continue. But for those who really wants to fly, and I said that because most of these people wants to go by road to travel from one point to the other. And if you go to the northern part of Nigeria, you see that frequency of travel between Nigeria and especially if you leave Katsina, you are more or less in a matter of hours in another country. So why should people who perhaps don't have sufficient funds go and procure 100,000, a form of withdrawal from their money? I think the alternative that seems to be there is to have an ECOWAS travel card, which is far cheaper than the international passport. If our exchange rate improves, the truth is that you might not see this money in dollar. You might see it in naira. In the real sense, it is dollar denominated. And that is why I say countries, except and unless, which is also my advice, if government can start producing this locally, then you can now see some naira indices or some naira components, cost components in having international passport. So, but for those who wants to travel, perhaps abroad, or they are traveling to do some other things, and I can tell you that it might be important for us to see what is going on now, because our economy has moved from the one that there is subsidy to one that perhaps you have to pay for almost everything. And if that is the economy we have, it's important that we have comprehensive information as to how that works. The question now is, how does it work? If we must look at the costs, internationally, and see what it means for us. So if somebody is traveling to the UK, he has to deal with getting a visa. And after that, you have to deal with getting a ticket, which of course is over $1 million. Then you now have to deal with getting a passport. That will even come first. And your passport now in Nigeria will be approximately $1 or $1.20 a month. So if you put that together for 5 years, it will give you an approximate $63 or $64, or in naira terms, 100,000 naira. So that is the reality, and that is what the number is saying this moment today.
All right, definitely before you can travel, you have to, trying to sort out tickets. You still have to pay for an increased passport fee. But let's pivot to another one now. The suspension of de minimis exemptions there. The $80 duty flat rate applied to all non-documents, even when the package value is significantly less. If you're sending out that package to the U.S., you have to pay that $80. They've suspended that minimum rule there for export. So quickly talk to me about this one. I guess this is originating from the U.S.
Well, I must say that when you look at the minimums, for some countries, especially advanced countries, they have it for commodities or items that are very low. In fact, some of them are not fully documented, because when you look at the amount for such imports, in some cases you have $100, you have $80. In some cases, you have them as $50. So removing it in Nigeria will certainly have impact, because it's going to increase, that means taxes will be applicable on them. It's also going to increase the cost with which the Nigerians are going to be procuring or buying those items. The implication is that depending on the type of good, if it's a commodity that can be transferred, the cost can be transferred to the final consumer, then that certainly will have implication on our cost component. My advice is that if truly we want to find a way to protect the poor, because if you say, oh, international passport procurement is not for the poor of the poor, those who are living below $2 a day, or those who are exactly on poverty line, or those who are exactly on minimum wage level of maybe 70,000, that they cannot afford it because they don't even have money to travel or to go via a ticket, and that is why we make the policy. One, we want to understand. But to now increase commodity that they import, especially when we know that such commodity may not be readily available in Nigeria, I think that may require a review. What that means to me will be that if the commodity can be transferred to if the tax burden can be transferred to the final consumer, then it might be a bit tougher for people to buy. And when it is tougher, that means that it will have implication on people's spending capacity. It will also have implication on people's disposable income, what is left after such purchase. And finally, it will have implication on inflation. When you read the National Bureau of Statistics, not less than 70% of all our finished product, and I'm just being charitable, in the real sense, not less than 80% of all finished product are imported into Nigeria. So if you are importing finished product, and most of these products are not capital goods. For capital goods, they have nothing to do with the municipal policy. Now, what they have to do is small items that people are bringing into Nigeria, and they might not be as huge, but they are significant enough for us not to ignore them. If we are doing this, then I will see it as purely as revenue drive, which I don't think should be our major or immediate concern, just as we mentioned earlier when we were having the earlier conversation.
All right, so much to unpack there. And definitely, I hope that this September we get less price hikes and maybe more income hikes, hopefully. Thank you so much, Dr. Paul Alaje, Chief Economist, SPM Professionals. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me. All
right, let's look at what the data is saying about the performance there. Nigeria's stock exchange for the month of August. We see for the ASI, that's up about 0.31%. That's for the month. Then top sector performance, we see 44% rise there for the insurance sector. Year-to-date gains, that stands at 36.31%. That's a big gain this year alone. I'm talking about the first half into this year, and definitely we've seen a lot of moves, especially from the insurance sector. That's for August. All right, let's bring in Mr. Mukhtar Mohammed now, CEO of Finance with Mukhtar. to help us break down the performance. Great to have you on the show, sir. Good morning.
Good morning, laddie. My pleasure. Good morning.
Yeah, so we're entering another month, and definitely investors would like to try and take some cue from what played out in August to get a sense of what to expect in September. How do you see it?
Well, laddie, like your report pointed out, August was the month of the insurance stock. They are among the 8 of the insurance stocks were among the 10 best performing stock in the market. And you know what was responsible for that recapitalization and also government policies and the documents. So we saw that happen in the insurance sector. So they were on a tick. If you look at performance in the month of August, you realize that despite the positive numbers, you realize that the insurance sector was the key driver in the month of August. And towards the last week, we saw those numbers coming down because, again, the regulators came up with a capital base issue for the insurance stocks, and you begin to see profit taking. So for the financial sector, laddie, you know, they control most of the market. And again, once you are not getting those numbers, especially those interim results from the tier 1 banks, it has had a negative impact on that sector. And hopefully when those results come, it could be like a trigger that could see market activities. You've seen the negativity even at the close last week. If you look at the conglomerate sector, that's the industrial goods sector, also you see that last week was not positive. You see profit taking have stepped in there also. So that also, and like we've talked about the insurance sectors already, profit taking stepped in there also. And also oil and gas sector, we saw those numbers come down also, especially with losses from big major like Seplat, Owando, and Total. So the when you look at all the numbers, is pointing towards that a lot of profit taking is happening. But again, towards the close of last week, you saw that volume decrease in terms of transaction volume by almost 32%. And that also shows you that a lot of people are waiting for trigger. A lot of people are reshuffling their portfolio. And that trigger, like I said, will have to come from the financial sector.
All right, let's look at the top gainers for the month of August now. We see the likes of that's Mutual Benefits Assurance PLC. That, you know, wrecked a nice gain there, 114.29%. That's a month-to-date gain. Quite impressive. See there, but you know, definitely we did see some other insurance stocks, you know, lose most of the gains from August. But we see the likes of ICO Insurance there. It's about 91% just for the month alone. Veritas Capital Assurance, 65.35%. So definitely domination there from the insurance stocks. Does that continue in September?
No, laddie, I don't think so. You're already saying that even the markets is not giving them that opportunity to continue. So when that document came out about the insurance sector, when the president signed into law the bill, you saw that was what was responsible for the kind of activities and price movement you saw in the insurance sector. Immediately towards the towards the end of last week, when they came up with the recapitalization base for each insurance, so depending on the type of business, you saw the following day, when that was announced, the following day, the market started having a downward trend. And what you see in those downward trend is that investors are beginning to look at those numbers and beginning to look at insurance stocks that they think they will be able to survive those numbers. And if you look at what you've just mentioned with those gains, if you look at it by where they were like some weeks ago compared to the final weeks of trading, you realize that a lot of them have lost a lot of numbers in terms of profit gain because in terms of price movement because of profit taking that happened during last week. So definitely, I think we'll continue to see that play out in the insurance sector, even going to the month of September, until we begin to get clear-cut policy of insurance stocks that we feel, insurance companies that we think will survive the recapitalization branch that has absorbed by the federal government. But again, you also have to look at some insurance sectors have also stocks have also you could see that they have stabilized because investors still have a little bit of confidence in them that they will scale this recapitalization drive. The lack of name insurance, their cornerstones, and then you look at Mansard. You see that the numbers, Crusader, you see that in terms of price movement, they've now gone to that corridor where we will call the corridor that they are maintaining at the moment is a corridor of stability in terms of price movement. You have seen them relatively stable in a particular corridor.
All right. So looking at the markets, the market movement generally, for the month of August, August started with the massive rally. Then into mid-August to the end of August, we saw huge profit taking. Is that a sign of what to expect in September?
Well, in September, I think we will still see profit taking, especially in this first week, until, like I said, until those numbers come in from the banking sector. We've not seen those numbers yet. We need to see those numbers. Remember, the banking sector control the drive in terms of liquidity, in terms of price movement, and also maybe 2/3 of the companies listed. And you know what a dividend is to a Nigerian investor. And coming from a place whereby at a point it was said that they may not be paying dividends now, from a company that was not going to pay dividends to a company that will be paying dividends now, especially for the banking sector. So September is going to be a month for the financial sectors. We expect these numbers to come in, and most investors are saying if the bank could pay those interim dividends, then that could be a game changer. Because remember, before now, there was talk of not forbearance, they will not be able to pay just and then at that time, it's only one bank that everybody was thinking was going to be able to pay. But now that has changed, and now what we are seeing is that a lot of these banks will pay those dividends, may be able to still pay those interim dividends, but the amount is not known yet, and so that also could contribute to the type of movement that we will see. For the insurance sector, when those numbers started coming out, half-year result for most of them, you saw that investors begin to take a second look. So investors will still be looking for price move, good price entry point to go in and exit point. If you look at those numbers, especially for those stocks that have made the kind of profit that you have seen in terms of number percentage, realize I call them the trader stocks because a lot of traders seem to trade those stocks. So those stocks are highly volatile. When you look at the fundamentals, if you look at some of them, the price they are selling, how much will they be able to pay in dividend payment? And if you look at their price PR ratio, price ratio, you realize that most of them are almost in double digit, not just double digit of 10. We are talking about almost some of them are up to 69, some of them are up to 70. That tells you that fundamentally there's still a lot of work to be done in those sectors. And when you look at some of those stocks again, you might be thinking that they might be merger and there may be share reconstruction because of the kind of volume some of these stocks are driving in terms of outstanding shares. If you look at the oil and gas sector, you don't expect so much to happen, especially with the advent of Dangote, even if we are still waiting for that logistics part of delivering to almost every part of Nigeria, that will have an impact on those major companies that have their marketing in the estates like Total. And so definitely we might not see so much activity. Oil prices, you said it at the beginning of the show, you've seen a little bit improvement in terms of oil price. But then it's still very volatile because, again, we still have the Russia-Ukraine crisis and the recent meeting between India and China. Also, that could also be a game changer in that spot. For the industrial goods, consumer protection, consumer index has improved. We've seen stability in terms of price. But again, will you be seeing Nigerians buying more, or will we just see the stability help in making household plan? And that could also help in improving consumer index, and then that also will help have an impact in the bottom line. For the telecom sector, we'll continue to see those good numbers being turned up, especially in the area of call, because of the both call and data, because of the increase in terms of telecom price that was backed by NCC. And also, don't forget, a company like MTN now is more or less, we wouldn't call it a merger, but it's type of strategic alliance with former 9Mobile. So there's a lot of that we're expecting to see in terms of numbers going forward. So September will be a deciding month for the financial sector. But for other sectors, will be wait and see in terms of policy direction and maybe looking for the third quarter what will happen.
All right, so, definitely, even though we did see gains there with the likes of mutual benefits and, some of those insurance stocks like AICO, are there laggards from August that you think investors should be looking at now?
Yeah, Larry, I believe strongly in fundamentals, and I believe strongly that, like we are beginning to see when the chips are down, it's only the strong stocks that remains there. And so, if you are talking about that, ICO Insurance would have been a very good stock to look at, but as it stands now, because of their large share standing, we won't be looking at that. I won't be picking ICO, but I'll give my bet on Cornerstone Insurance. Very fantastic. The numbers were positive. Dividend payments. Very positive the last year end numbers, half year numbers were also very good. You look at Amzam Mansard, you look at the holding structure of Amzam Mansard, that also give them a lot of boost going forward. I don't think they'll have challenges in terms of recapitalization, though the half year result was not that fantastic as what investors were thinking. Don't take your eyes off them insurance. That's a stock that I've taken investors from the beginning of the year up to this moment. Also, in terms of price movement, Crusader Insurance, that's a stock that I keep taking investors because, again, you're looking at the Crusader insurance company that also play the pension fund spec. So it's more or less like you have a pension fund company listed and you have an insurance company listed just in one. So that also is a good stock to look at. So for me, those are the insurance stocks I will be looking at if I am a player in that sector because of the strong fundamentals going forward. But when you look at the other lags that have done a lot in terms of profit making, you have to look at their history. Most of them have not been able to pay dividend for years. Most of them, their numbers have not been positive until recent pronouncement in terms of the insurance bill that was signed by the president. Then you begin to see activities in those space. So for me, I think these four stocks that I've listed are good. I would have put ICO there, but again, like I said, in terms of the share standing, it's huge, and that has an impact on the bottom in terms of what goes out to the individual investors.
All right, definitely. September just started, and it's quite interesting. It's starting on day one. That's a trading day. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Mukhtar Mohammed, CEO Finance with Mukhtar. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you for having me, Ladi.
All right, let's get a check on the global economy now. What are we supposed to be looking at? Definitely that's going to drive investor sentiment right there in the global space. And yes, it's a packed week right there. I would see the U.S. stock market, even though that's going to be closed today for observance of Labor Day in the U.S. Markets are closed. But subsequent days this week, even though it's a holiday-shortened week, we're still looking out for ISM manufacturing PMI data. That's coming out Tuesday for, definitely for major economies from Europe, the U.S., even right here in Africa. We're checking out how the private sector is doing. Yeah, we'll check out that gauge. And we'll see JOLTS job openings data for July. That's coming up Wednesday, September 3rd. That's in the U.S. And investors will be looking out for that data for signs of weakness right there in the job market to justify a rate cut in the U.S., definitely. Then the ADP private payrolls for August and weekly jobless claims data, that's coming out Thursday, September, still for the jobs market there to find out if the U.S. Fed or the rate hikes have broken anything in the jobs market. They also have July trade figures and revised second quarter productivity cost figures. That's coming out for Wednesday. We'll see who's getting a trade surplus right there in the global economy. That's definitely going to drive investor sentiment. Then ISM services PMI, that's for Thursday, September 4th, also for the major economies that we track at this point. And the non-farm payrolls, that's Friday. Investors always definitely look out for this data there to get a sense of how the U.S. job market is doing. And definitely that would, if it comes out weak, definitely we'll see volatility right there in the market. But right about now, let's find out what's happening in the tech space. We see as Nigeria broadens its digital frontier, Gitex Nigeria 2025. We see that's starting today in Abuja. We also have it happening in Lagos. And we have Juliana. Juliana is not in London right now. Juliana is in Abuja to cover what's playing out there. Great to have you, Juliana.
Hi, Laddie. Good morning. I am in Abuja. I've literally just stepped out of the venue in the Continental Hotel, where, as you said, Gitex is hosting its first Nigeria event. We do have the Minister of Digital Communications, Fosun Tijani, here, and a huge swathe of tech experts, tech leaders to convene in Nigeria to discuss the next frontier. We know that technology, AI, is reaching a new trajectory, shall we say? And these are the discussions that are going to be taking place over the next few days. I know that at about 2 p.m. we're expecting the Vice President to officially launch the event, and then it goes over to Lagos. So over the next couple of days, I will be, once I've caught my breath, be sending a series of reports and updates. We've got Google here, we've got NVIDIA being represented, as well as, of course, so many unicorns from across Nigeria, including Flutterwave. So I think it's really important. In fact, this is actually a really good opportunity for Fosun Tijani. As you know, just a couple of days ago, he was recognized by Time, which is a pretty prestigious magazine, as being one of the front leaders when it comes to discussions around AI. So yeah, it's going to be really exciting, really good, really positive, and I'll be sending updates from here, Laddie.
Right, definitely looking forward, to those updates, and definitely, there's that narrative that, we import everything, in Nigeria, especially, technology. Do you think there are going to be conversations about how Nigeria can develop technology and maybe we can export that? At this time. Do you see those kind of conversations coming up?
Laddie, I'm so sorry. It's so busy here, and I could use the excuse of having quite poor network, so I didn't really catch everything you're saying. But if I believe you were talking about whether or not Nigeria is part of that global tech narrative, I think we need to be. I think now, as we were discussing last week with NVIDIA and those bombastic results, I think technology has now become geopolitical. So I think it is very important that we are able to showcase these technologies. And also as well, a lot of our tech experts appear to be just a flash in the pan. We want more. We want to create an entire ecosystem so that they can contribute to the broader discussion, which is, what is the future of AI? What does that look like? And also as well, access for all, not just a few.
All right, thanks so much, Juliana. We'll definitely be looking out for, what's going to come out from this discussion. Hopefully, at some point we start exporting technology. Thank you, and definitely hope to see you in Lagos when you arrive.
I'll see you in Lagos, and I'll be, of course, sending a report later on today so that the viewers will be able to see what's happening behind the scenes. It is very, very, very busy here, Laddie.
Right, I can feel the energy there. Thank you so much, Juliana. All right, let's pivot now to other matters right there in the global space. See China's factory activity that expanded at the fastest pace in 5 months in August. A private sector survey showed today, offering a glimmer of improvement amid weaker official signals. The rating dog, that's China General Manufacturing PMI, that was about 50.5 points in August from 49.5 in July, exceeding a forecast of about 49.7 points and breaking into expansion territory above the 50-point growth threshold. The jump is largely driven by a surge in new orders. The survey noted even as export demand continued to decline for a 5th consecutive month. Meanwhile, firms reported their fastest accumulation of unfinished work in 6 months. This comes after official PMI figures over the weekend showed that the manufacturing sector contracted for a 5th straight month in August. Despite the uptick, manufacturers remain cautious on hiring, with employment contracting for the 5th month running. Rising input costs fueled by sharper raw material price increases and persistent supplier delays also tempered optimism there. Also, we see shares of Chinese electric vehicle maker BYD, that slid by as much as 8% today after reported a drop in profit because of price war in China's car sector The car maker on Friday reported that its net profit fell to about 6.4 billion yuan between April and June, down 30% from a year earlier. BYD said in its filing that increased price competition among China's EV brands had impacted the industry. The Shenzhen-based manufacturer is facing an increasingly crowded market, competing against local rivals like NIO and Xpeng and U.S. car maker Tesla, which have all slashed prices to draw buyers. BYD also mentioned that competition in China's car sector had reached a fever pitch. Right there. The Chinese President Xi Jinping has asked members of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization to strengthen artificial intelligence cooperation while rejecting what he called a Cold War mentality. Xi was speaking today at the largest ever summit of the SCO today, with more than 20 foreign leaders gathered in Tianjin, including Russian President Vladimir Putin and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The meeting comes as China seeks to cast itself as a global peacemaker against a backdrop of persistent trade tensions with the United States, Russia's war in Ukraine, and the Israel-Hamas conflict. Xi said China has invested $84 billion in other SCO countries and pledged support for 10,000 students to join Beijing's Luban vocational educational sector. They added that the SCO gathering presents an opportunity to chart a new phase of high-quality development and cooperation. Let's flip over to Spain now. See, the country's manufacturing sector experienced its fastest growth in nearly a year in August, driven by a sharp rise in output and new orders. According to the S&P Global Report, the HCOB Spain Manufacturing Purchasing Managers Index that rose to 54.3 points in August, up from 51.9 in July. A big jump there, marking the fastest expansion since last October, when it stood at about 54.5. PMI reading above 50 definitely indicates growth in activity there. So we're seeing some of those PMI numbers already trickling out right there today, and definitely be looking out for more later on in the week. Definitely investors will be looking out for cues on what's playing out with most of these economies, and we'll see that driving sentiment in the currency market and in the equities market. And talking about the equities market, that's open right here in Lagos, Nigeria. We'll give you more details at 1:30 on Business Incorporated and what's playing out. Thanks so much for watching Business Morning. I'm Ladi Williams. Bye for now.